Every rifle you see in a soldier's hands today, the M4 carbine carried by American troops in Afghanistan, the AK-47 used by armies across half the world, the HK-416 of Special Forces, the SCAR, the TAVR, every single one of them descends from one weapon, a weapon built by Germany. In 1943, that Germany lost the war carrying. The Sturmgewehr 44 was not just ahead of its time, it defined what infantry weapons would become for the next 80 years. The concept it introduced, an intermediate cartridge, fired from a selective fire weapon with a detachable magazine, is the foundation of every modern assault rifle on the planet. Mikhail Kalashnikov studied captured examples when designing the AK-47. Eugene Stoner, who designed the AR-15 platform that became the M16 and M4, was working in the same conceptual space the Sturmgewehr had already mapped. Germany had the right idea. Germany had it first. Germany produced 425,000 of them, and Germany still lost. This is the story of the weapon that won every argument about the future of infantry combat and arrived too late in too few numbers with too many enemies already at the gates. To understand why the Sturmgewehr 44 was revolutionary, you need to understand the problem every army in World War II was trying to solve, and why most of them never solved it. In 1939, infantry combat worked like this. A soldier carried a bolt-action rifle firing a full-power cartridge. The German 7.9 2x57mm Mauser, the American 30-06, the Soviet 7.6 2x54R. These cartridges were powerful, accurate at long range, and completely unsuited to the way most infantry actually fought. Here is the reality of ground combat that every after-action report confirmed. The overwhelming majority of infantry firefights happened at ranges under 300 meters, often under 150. In urban terrain, forests, hedgerows, trenches, the distances at which soldiers actually killed each other were short. The full-power rifle cartridge, designed to be lethal at 800 meters, was massive overkill for close combat. It produced heavy recoil that made automatic fire nearly uncontrollable, and it meant soldiers could only carry a limited number of rounds. At the same time, armies had submachine guns. The German MP-40, the American Thompson, the Soviet PPSH-41. These fired pistol cartridges were lightweight and had high rates of fire, but they were accurate only at very short ranges, under 100 meters, and had no ability to engage targets beyond that distance. So armies had two weapons that each solved half the problem. The rifle was accurate at range, but slow firing. The submachine gun was fast firing at close range, but useless at distance. What soldiers actually needed was a single weapon that split the difference. More range than a submachine gun, more rate of fire than a rifle, with a cartridge powerful enough for combat ranges but light enough for controllable automatic fire. This was not a secret insight. Military theorists had been arguing for exactly this kind of intermediate cartridge weapon since the 1920s. The Germans called the concept Sturmgewehr, literally assault rifle, a storm weapon for attacking. The problem was that every major military establishment resisted the idea. Senior commanders were attached to long-range precision fire. The logistical challenge of introducing a new cartridge alongside existing ones was massive. And in bureaucracies run by men who had fought in World War I, the idea that infantrymen primarily needed close-range firepower was psychologically difficult to accept. Germany solved this problem, then almost immediately made every possible mistake in how they handled the solution. The Sturmgewehr 44 was developed by Hugo Schmeisser, one of the most important small arms designers of the 20th century, working at the C.G. Haenel Company in Suhl, Germany. Schmeisser had already designed the MP-18, the world's first practical submachine gun used at the end of World War I. He understood automatic weapons, and by the late 1930s, he understood that the future of infantry combat required something fundamentally new. The key innovation was the cartridge. Schmeisser's design was chambered for the 7.92 by 33 mm Kurz. Kurz meaning short in German. This was not a pistol cartridge and not a full rifle cartridge. It was an intermediate, shorter, lighter, with less propellant than the standard Mauser round. It generated less recoil, meaning automatic fire was controllable. It was lighter, meaning soldiers could carry significantly more ammunition. And it was sufficiently powerful for accurate fire at combat ranges up to 300 meters. The weapon itself went through development stages as the MKB-42 and MP-43 before being officially designated the Sturmgewehr 44. It used stamped steel construction, pressed metal components rather than precision machined parts, making it faster and cheaper to produce than traditional machined steel rifles. The specifications were remarkable. The STG-44 held 30 rounds in a curved, detachable magazine. It could fire in semi-automatic mode for precise aimed shots, or switch to fully automatic for suppressive fire. Its effective range in semi-automatic was approximately 300 meters. In automatic, it provided a volume of fire no bolt-action rifle could approach. The weapon weighed 5.22 kilograms loaded, heavier than an M1 Garand. But in exchange, the soldier carried 30 rounds instead of 8 and could deliver them in either precise semi-automatic or fully automatic fire. Soldiers who were issued it on the Eastern Front in late 1943 immediately understood what it was. German infantry reports described the STG-44 as transformative in close combat. In the forests and ruins where engagements happened at 50 to 200 meters, a squad equipped with Sturmgewehr could generate firepower that neither a bolt-action enemy squad nor a submachine gun squad could match. The concept was correct, the execution was capable, the timing was catastrophic. Here is where the Sturmgewehr 44 story becomes something more than a military history lesson. It becomes a case study in what happens when the wrong person makes decisions about weapons they don't understand. Development of what would become the STG-44 began in the late 1930s under the designation MKB-42. By 1942, field trials were producing positive results. Wehrmacht infantry commanders on the Eastern Front were requesting the weapon urgently. Adolf Hitler opposed it, completely, personally, repeatedly. Hitler's objection was that Germany needed more submachine guns and more conventional rifles, not a new category of weapon requiring a new cartridge. He believed, against all evidence from the Eastern Front, that German infantry's primary need was for long-range precision fire, and that the existing Karabiner 98K filled that role adequately. He ordered development stopped multiple times. The German army, which understood that their infantry was being outfought in close combat by Soviet soldiers armed with the PPSH-41, did something remarkable. They continued development under a series of deceptive designations. The MKB-42 became the MP-43, Maschinenpistole, machine pistol, a designation that implied it was merely a submachine gun variant, not the entirely new weapon category. It actually was. Development continued under the false label. In 1943, frontline commanders who had received the MP-43 for field trials sent Hitler a direct report. When he asked his Eastern Front generals what they needed most, multiple commanders simultaneously answered, "More of this weapon." They held up the MP-43. Hitler's response was to finally approve the weapon, rename it the Sturmgewehr 44, a name he coined himself, having apparently decided the concept was his idea, and authorize expanded production. But the delay had cost Germany 2 full years of production, 2 years during which the Eastern Front had consumed hundreds of thousands of casualties that better-equipped infantry might have reduced. 2 years during which the Soviet Union had produced millions of PPSH-41 submachine guns that dominated close combat in exactly the ranges where the STG-44 would have been decisive. Production authorization in 1943 was too late to matter at the scale Germany needed. Here is the number that tells the story. Total Sturmgewehr 44 production from 1943 to 1945. Approximately 425,000 rifles. Germany's Wehrmacht, at its peak in 1943, numbered approximately 9.5 million men in all branches. The ground forces alone numbered in the millions. 425,000 Sturmgewehr, distributed across a front that stretched from Norway to Italy to France to the Eastern Front, meant that the STG-44 was never standard issue. It was never even close to standard issue. Individual units that received it, certain elite Waffen-SS divisions, some Heer infantry units on the Eastern Front, reported dramatic improvements in close combat effectiveness. The weapon delivered exactly what it promised, but most German infantry never held one. Most German infantry fought the entire war with the Karabiner 98K bolt-action rifle they had started with. The production bottleneck had the same root causes we have seen throughout this series. The new 7.92 by 33 mm Kurz cartridge required its own dedicated production lines. Adding a new ammunition type to Germany's already strained logistics system was a massive challenge. Supply units had to stock both standard Mauser ammunition for the Kar 98K and Kurz ammunition for the STG-44, complicating an already difficult supply chain operating under constant Allied air attack. And Allied bombing was by 1944 systematically destroying exactly the kind of industrial facilities that produced the STG-44. The Henel factory in Suhl was targeted. Component manufacturers were targeted. The transportation network was targeted. Germany managed 425,000 in 2 years of production. The Soviet Union in the same period produced approximately 6 million PPSH-41 submachine guns. The PPSH-41 was a simpler weapon, not as capable at range, not as versatile, but it could be produced in vast quantities from minimal raw materials, maintained by any soldier, and issued to every infantryman in assault units. Soviet infantry went into battle with 1 PPSH, 41 per man. German infantry went into battle with 1 STG-44 per squad, if they were lucky, while the rest carried bolt-action rifles from 1898. Where the STG-44 was used, it worked. Soviet after-action reports from the Eastern Front in 1944 described engagements against German units equipped with the Sturmgewehr in terms that echo the Wehrmacht reports about M1 Garands. The weapon changed the dynamics of close combat. Soviet infantry that had learned to close distance quickly against bolt-action defenders found that Sturmgewehr-equipped defenders could maintain effective fire throughout the charge. The volume and accuracy of fire from a single German soldier with an STG-44 exceeded what a squad of bolt-action soldiers could produce. American soldiers encountering the STG-44 in France and Germany in 1944 and 1945 were similarly unsettled. After-action reports noted that the weapon was unlike anything they had seen from German infantry previously. It combined the volume of fire of a submachine gun with effective range that a submachine gun couldn't approach. The irony was structural and cruel. The soldiers who finally received the STG-44 in significant numbers were receiving it in 1944 and 1945, when the strategic situation was already irretrievable. The weapon that might have stabilized the Eastern Front in 1942 or 1943 was arriving in German hands as the Red Army stood on the Vistula preparing to advance to the Oder. In May 1945, Hugo Schmeisser was captured by American forces at Suhl. He was subsequently transferred to Soviet custody and transported to Izhevsk, the Soviet city home to their primary small arms development facilities. He remained in the Soviet Union until 1952. Whether he directly contributed to the AK-47's development is a question historians still debate. Mikhail Kalashnikov always insisted the AK-47 was his own design. The timing The AK-47 was adopted by the Soviet Army in 1947, shortly after Schmeisser arrived at Izhevsk. Has fueled decades of speculation. What is not debatable is this. The AK-47 operates on the same fundamental principle as the STG-44. Gas-operated, selective fire, intermediate cartridge, detachable curved magazine. The mechanical execution is different. The concept is identical, and the M16 family, designed by Eugene Stoner in the late 1950s, adopted by the US military, and still the basis of the M4 carbine carried by American soldiers today, is also built on the same concept. Intermediate cartridge, selective fire, detachable magazine, gas operation. Every infantry rifle designed and adopted by a major military since 1945 has been an assault rifle. Every one of them is the Sturmgewehr 44's conceptual descendant. Germany was right about what infantry combat required, right in 1943. The entire world figured it out by 1960. We have now told 3 stories in this series. The Tiger tank, the best possible weapon, produced in numbers too small to matter, deployed incorrectly, maintained impossibly. Germany lost not because the Tiger was bad, but because they made 1,347 of them. The M1 Garand, a sufficient weapon produced in numbers that equipped every American infantryman, simple enough to maintain in any condition. America won not because the M1 was perfect, but because they made 4 million of them. The Sturmgewehr 44, the right weapon with the right concept, arriving too late and in too few numbers to change a war that Germany's other failures had already lost. 3 weapons. 3 different failure modes. 1 lesson. Being right is not enough. Having the best is not enough. Having a good idea first is not enough. In industrial warfare, the side that can sustain production, absorb losses, and keep equipping its soldiers wins. Not always immediately. Not always easily. But consistently, across the long duration of conflict, sufficiency at scale beats brilliance in small numbers. Germany built the assault rifle in 1943. They made 425,000 of them. The Soviet Union built the AK-47 in 1947, using lessons from Germany's own weapon. They made, across all variants and licensed copies, over 100 million of them. The idea was German, the scale was Soviet, and scale, as always, was what determined the outcome. The STG-44 didn't fail because it was a bad weapon. It failed because Germany was already losing the war it was designed to win. And a brilliant weapon in a losing war is just a more expensive way to lose. Next episode, the aircraft. By 1944, the Luftwaffe was flying the Messerschmitt, Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter, 160 kilometers per hour, faster than anything the Allies could put in the air, armed with 4 30mm cannons that could destroy a B-17 in a single burst. Germany had a jet fighter in 1944. The Allies didn't have one until after the war ended, and Germany still lost the air war. That story is next.